The reason why I call for a press conference is the press is because of certain developments.
Address. It is addressed from. It's called Kenyataan Media. The letterhead is from Jabatan Perdana Menteri / Jabatan Peguam Negara. Nowadays, they issue press release like that for some reason or other. Okay? But this has got direct impact on whether Datuk Sri Najib is having a fair trial or otherwise. We want to make certain comment because we are worried of certain developments where people who are obviously implicated are not even brought to justice or to be charged or to be further investigated for purposes of being charged. So I'm going to read, not all, some parts of it so that you can capture the most salient parts of it. Ya, saya akan baca kenyataan media yang agak lebih mustahak. Dan selepas tu, kalau ada soalan-soalan yang berbangkit, saya boleh menjawab. Okay, I will read first in English. As you know, Roger Ng, whose full name is Roger Ng Chonghua, was returned to Malaysia in October 2023, ostensibly to face charges and assist Malaysian investigation following his conviction in the United States. You know he was convicted in the US. His appeal recently was rejected by the appellate court, and he's facing the 10 years imprisonment. Then this is confirmed by correspondence between the Attorney General's chambers and the US Department of Justice, which has become an exhibit in court about his conviction and his imprisonment. However, you will find this is strange. The cases against him in Malaysia, which is under the Capital Market and Services Act, before even he comes back, or rather before even he came back, was given a DNAA at the request of the prosecutors, contrary to what we expect. Okay, that was on 9 January 2023. He came back a bit later than that. And then other potential cases against him, which we expected, do not seem to appear to be actively pursued, either investigation or prosecution. And then what is even more interesting is, just like Jasmine Liu, he has been placed under witness protection program, where he's treated like a VIP, being escorted here and there. Nothing seems to happen to him, in spite of his conviction, in spite of Jasmine Liu's, admission to many things. Now, in the recent press statement issued by the AGC in conjunction with the PMO, this is what they say. I want to read from the original of what they said. This is the Kenyataan Media. I think you probably have seen it. Yeah, dated 12 December 2025. Now, the language is important. And dia berbunyi macam ini, dikatakan perkembangan terkini usaha Malaysia berkaitan proceeding melibatkan dana Satu Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB. And it says, tekad bagi menegakkan keadilan, menuntut keazaman dan kecekalan berterusan. Rata-rata masyarakat di Malaysia mempunyai kebimbangan yang mendalam tentang peranan yang dimainkan oleh Goldman Sachs dalam salah satu skim penipuan terbesar dalam sejarah moden yang menyasarkan rakyat Malaysia sebagai mangsa utamanya. My comment is, the expression is a very strong language. They have resolved, and they have also with continuous tenacity they wanted to pursue against Goldman Sachs and of course the officers of Goldman Sachs, because Goldman Sachs is involved in one of the biggest scandal, namely fraud, perhaps the biggest in the world. I've always said this, and I maintain that it is the 1MDB scandal is the biggest scam in the world. Okay? Now, then they say sejak tahun 2023, apabila Roger Ng dikembalikan kepada penyiasat Malaysia, selepas dibicarakan dan disabitkan kesalahan di Amerika Syarikat, terdapat maklumat baharu yang ditemukan. Malaysia terus berusaha untuk mendapatkan dokumen-dokumen yang tidak pernah diperoleh. I stress the word yang tidak pernah diperoleh sebelumnya, dan individu termasuk tim Lesnar yang tidak pernah dibicarakan dalam sistem keadilan Malaysia. Sehingga hari ini negara kita mengalami bukan sahaja kesan implikasi kewangan yang berterusan, tetapi juga kerugian yang tidak dapat dipulihkan sehingga usaha giat kita selesai sepenuhnya. Justru Malaysia tidak akan berputus asa dalam mendapatkan pemulihan yang adil dan wajar daripada perbankan gergasi global, that is Goldman Sachs, dan semua yang bersekongkol dalam perlakuan jenayah ini. Last paragraph, dalam usaha ini kerajaan Malaysia telah mengemukakan permintaan ekstradisi bertarikh 14 Ogos 2024, more than a year ago, kepada kerajaan Amerika Syarikat bagi penyerahan tim Lesnar untuk dibicarakan di Malaysia, di mana permintaan tersebut sedang dipertimbangkan oleh kerajaan Amerika Syarikat. Malaysia juga telah mengambil tindakan susulan termasuk mengemukakan maklumat tambahan yang diminta oleh pihak Amerika Syarikat. This was done on 12 December 2025, quite recently, about a week or 10 days ago. Now, this is an important announcement, which in terms of objective is in line with our objective. If you remember, I don't want to read the press statement because you'll read it later. If you can remember, we wanted to introduce evidence through Roger Ng, because Roger Ng we call as a witness. You remember? We call him as a witness. The reason why we call him as a witness was because Roger Ng's lawyer, by the name of Mark Anthony Filio, in New York, disclosed to the New York court, which is the New York Eastern District, where he said, you know, the Southern District have given permission to me to disclose this information, but I am blocked by this court, which is the Eastern District Court, because the prosecutor there blocked him from disclosing what he said was evidence that are favorable. The word he used was exculpatory evidence. Exculpatory means evidence that are favorable to Datuk Sri Najib. Very important, he said this, not us. He said, my client has got this. This evidence is favorable, exculpatory, in favor of Datuk Sri Najib. And he said, we are blocked from disclosing this, although ethically and morally and legally we should disclose this, because what we have will show that Datuk Sri Najib's defense is believable, consistent with the document that he has. Very important. So this is evidence that would help Datuk Sri Najib to show that he is not guilty of 1MDB charges in the court. So you tell me whether blocking of this evidence is consistent with a fair trial principle. Under Article 5, together with Article 8, you know, in Malaysia, fair trial is compulsory, is mandatory. if you breach fair trial principle, you don't have to hear any more evidence. You acquit the man. And that's what happened in the review case in the federal court, where it was a 4-1 decision. That one in our favor said he didn't receive fair trial. He acquitted Datuk Sri Najib. The other 4 didn't give any serious written judgment, but they just carried on with the conviction. So that's number one I want to point out to you. Number two, with the recent press statement by the AG and PMO, they said we are determined to get to the bottom of every information. And apparently some information are coming in as a result of Roger Ng apparently cooperating, and as a result of perhaps some other evidence which the AGC may have got. Okay? Now, surely it would include what Roger Ng have foreshadowed through his counsel, Mark Agnifilo, that the evidence that he has got is so helpful to Datuk Sri Najib's defense. It will show Datuk Sri Najib was innocent. But we were blocked. But surely what the government announced, that they now got further evidence, must include this, because they say Roger Ng is very cooperative and has been telling the penyiasat all the information that they never had before. That's number one. Okay? Now, straight away, any of you will be thinking, you don't have to be a lawyer. If Roger Ng in court say, I cannot disclose, that's what he did. I cannot disclose because I am governed by the US court, which is the Eastern court, Eastern New York court. So I cannot speak about this. I questioned him many times. He attended with another lawyer, I think Datuk Tan Hock Chuan. We got nothing from him about that evidence that is favorable to Datuk Sri Najib. He refused to disclose it. You remember the judge said, and I said as well, that you are in a Malaysian court, you're not bound by the US court. The judge recognized it. In fact, the judge said it openly. But the judge said, however, I recognize the difficulty of this witness because he has got to go back to New York. He will face the music. So the judge did not compel him. Okay? So we are now left with a situation where he refused to allow us to get the information, but he spilled the beans, surely, to the investigators. And our trial has closed. Decision is on the 26th. So I ask you whether that is a fair trial. Nothing to do with the current judge, because the current judge has got no role to play about what evidence to give or not. He's just a judge. He will have to decide based on what is before him. But I question the motive of the US government through their prosecutors, and I question the motive of any other agencies, local or otherwise, as to why we are deprived of this very valuable evidence. Okay? That's very critical. Now, because I don't want to read the whole lot, I also ask you to consider, since we are talking so much about fair trial, what is happening with Jho Low? Many of you must be thinking, what is happening to Jho Low? Everything seems to be quiet, like as though Jho Low doesn't really exist. And we question this because, quite clearly, Roger Ng, Tim Lesner gave evidence that Jho Low was the number one person who was arranging this conspiracy. Very important. It was Jho Low. They mentioned also Jasmine Loo. Jasmine Loo will legalize, by way of documents, what is not legal. She's an expert at legalizing anything illegal in order to pursue the conspiracy to do fraud against one MDB. Now, thirdly, I hope you remember this, very important. What did Roger Ng say in court when I gambled and asked him, is there evidence that Datuk Sri Najib is involved with Tim Lesner, Goldman Sachs and you? And he says, nothing. Datuk Sri Najib, as far as he was concerned, was not involved in the conspiracy. So you see the connection. First, he's got evidence, which he's not allowed to give. But when I ask him a separate question, do you have evidence about Datuk Sri Najib being in the conspiracy? He says, no, none. Now, you must think like a prosecutor or defense counsel. This time I ask you to be a lawyer lah. All right. Namely this. If Roger Ng has got such evidence about Datuk Sri Najib, or Tim Lesner has got such evidence about Datuk Sri Najib, Tim Lesner has been selling everybody. Yeah? He's been putting Roger Ng under the bus. He can easily do likewise with Datuk Sri Najib. Neither Tim Lesner nor Roger Ng have said Datuk Sri Najib is implicated. Mind you, who is giving instruction to Goldman Sachs? It's always been Jho Low. They have thrown Jho Low under the bus, but never Datuk Sri Najib. Okay? So the question is this country doing a dirty deal with Jho Low? Or worse still, doing a corrupt deal with Jho Low? Some kind of deal that we are not even bringing him in, no attempt, in spite of the previous two IGP, namely Tan Sri Bado, Hamid Bado. He said, you give me 2 weeks, I'll bring him here. Nothing happened. Huh? More than 2 weeks has passed, I think about 2 years. Nothing happened. That, no. When he said it, it was about 2-3 years ago. When he said, give me 2 weeks. You can interpret it in many ways. Namely, he can be brought, but somebody must have stopped Hamid Bado to bring Jho Low in. Now you consider also Jho Low's red corner alert by Interpol has been cancelled. Question mark, why? Why is Jasmine Lu very free? Why is Roger Ng? The promise is that he will face charges here apart from investigation, face the case, and then serve the sentences in the US and in KL. Serve the sentence. He is free as a bird and being protected on top of that, just like Jasmine Lu. Okay, this is the message I want to give you so that as members of the press, especially if you are an investigating journalist, you'll find that this is interesting, what they call it, material for you to go further. Okay, I've got the press release, but before that, if you want to ask any question, I'm here with my team to answer it.